Welcome, NFL football fans. It's that time again, time for this week's edition of NFL Football Talk. This is an Inside Sports production. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr., and here we are. We're finally down to the final two teams. 12 teams started the journey. We're now down to two, and of course, the Denver Broncos, right here on the cover of Sports Illustrated magazine, they made it. They defeated the New England Patriots 20-18. On the other side, the Carolina Panthers, they'll be representing the NFC by way of a 49-15 utter destruction of the Arizona Cardinals. So, before we go ahead and break things down and share some Super Bowl memories and talk about the game and some other things, you know I do not do the show alone. I only enlist the very, very best, and who better than a man who has watched many, many Super Bowls, been a part of so many great NFL moments. Here he is, the man some of you follow on Twitter at Chris L Sports, from an undisclosed location somewhere in Southern California. Here he is, Chris Lardieri. Hey, what's happening out there, Chris?
Not much, Charles. Thanks again. Great to be here, and I can't believe the 50th, a.k.a. Roman numeral L, version of the Super Bowl is upon us.
Yeah, and you know, they dumped the Roman numeral thing, so let's not get the wrong... I do have a sample of what it looked like, but they're going with actually the numbers 50. So it is not Super Bowl L, it is Super Bowl 50.
I know, and I'm not a fan of it. They stick with the Roman numerals. Anyone knows it's 50, but I'm sure there's some sort of marketing behind it, just like a gold NFL shield.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and here you got the Carolina Panthers, who are going to the second Super Bowl in their team's history, and then the Denver Broncos in their 8th Super Bowl in team history, going for their 3rd Super Bowl ring, but the first without a quarterback named John Elway. So, you know, what stood out to you when we look at those two games? First, the Broncos and the way that they kind of, really it was about Von Miller and that defense, but the way that they just kind of tidily took care of the New England Patriots. And Stephen Gostkowski, I think he's got, Blair Walsh has a little bit of company there as far as in the kicking game for the Patriots.
Yeah, definitely. And a guy who's been money all season, and to miss an extra point like that in a big situation, albeit it was early in the game. And personally, the things that stood out to me, you can blame Gostkowski all you want, but I got to be honest with you, it wasn't Bill Belichick's best coached game. And I understand the Patriots don't have a great running game, but when you got 6 minutes left in the game and you're trailing by 8, I mean, and the Broncos are basically playing prevent offense to try and kill the clock.
Right.
And the Patriots are successful in stopping them. Why not kick a field goal? What do you have to lose? Did he lose faith in Gostkowski, or, you know, being the genius he thinks he is, that he's going to play a roll of the dice, like going for it on 4th down years ago in his own territory? I don't know, but really questionable there. And, you know, the Broncos did a great job on D. Wade Phillips is to be commended for a great game plan. And, you know you're in trouble, Patriots, when you can't run the ball, and James White is the guy that Brady's targeting more than Gronkowski. So, really, I think a lot of things caught up with them with injuries in the line and no running game, and the Broncos played the perfect game to exploit that.
Yeah, exactly. And so for those who don't remember, it was Dion Lewis who was at running back to start the season, splitting time with LeGarrette Blount. Lewis goes down with an injury. Then later on, late in the season, Blount goes down with an injury. So they're down to Steven Jackson, who was, I don't know, he was retired, and they called him out of retirement. You know, Steven Jackson used to run for the St. Louis and soon to be L.A. Rams. But, and you got to commend the Patriots, though. Obvious, all due respect to the Broncos, but for the Patriots for getting this patchwork team, which they had suffered through injuries all year long, but finally got them to the championship game before things kind of capitulated.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, say what you will about Belichick, but he does more with less, and I think of any coach in the NFL.
Right.
One kind of side note to this that I thought was interesting is both conferences, but especially with this game, home field came into play, and you know, had the Patriots not mailed it in the last couple of weeks, A, would they have kept their momentum going, and B, they had hosted a home game in Foxborough. I believe it was 20 degrees and coming off some snow, and who knows what would have happened. We know Peyton wouldn't have liked that.
Yeah, that's true. And then let's go ahead and jump over. So obviously there's the backstory with Peyton Manning going for his second Super Bowl ring of his career, and this is likely his last hurrah, which he tried to kind of whisper that to Belichick, but I guess there's so many cameras and everything around that some people caught him saying that, so now everybody's talking about it, but he isn't. So we'll see what happens there. But on the other side, the Carolina Panthers and their utter destruction of a good Arizona Cardinals team. Now, this is the second week in a row. They beat the Seahawks before. Now they come in and destroy the Cardinals. And I kind of think that your boy Michael Strahan kind of put it best after the win. He said that the Carolina Panthers are kind of like the Golden State Warriors, in that they were a good team, and then all of a sudden everything comes together, and now they're going to be a really tough out.
Yeah, definitely, and it's ironic because Cam Newton is good friends with Steph Curry. Go figure. But yeah, and you know, throughout the year we thought, oh, the Panthers will lose. They're a good team in a weak division, but they keep rolling and rolling and rolling. And I think the most impressive thing is the fact that they were what we thought was so thin at wide receiver, and they've got just guys stepping up and making plays. You know, Ted Ginn likes to drop the ball, but he's caught more than he's dropped this year. And you got to say, is this a function of Cam Newton? I think it is. I think we're seeing the real deal here, regardless of whether he wins or loses. It's very rare that you see a quarterback with his size and his arm and his ability to run and move and make plays, and the guy's not afraid to run. I mean, look at how that touchdown he scored on the Cardinals might not be the safest thing, but you know, this guy plays aggressively. You've got to hand it to him, and one unsung hero on this team too. You know, Newton and their D gets a lot of attention. Right. How about the offensive line? They've really done a great job this year, and keeping him protected and opening holes for Jonathan Stewart. And you know, in case you missed it, the former movie star Michael Orr was kind of jettisoned by the Titans, finds a home in Carolina, and he's going back to his second Super Bowl. So another great storyline.
Yeah, there you go. And I'd also give Cam Newton a lot of credit for, this is Cam 2.0 that we're seeing right now. And you got to credit, I mean, him for being willing to go with the program, and also Mike Shula for working with him on it. But he had to go outside his comfort zone to become this great quarterback he is now, because he was a run-first guy his first few seasons in the league. Then it's like the willingness to stay outside your comfort zone and then get to that next level, much like Steve Young had to do. He was a great running quarterback, but he didn't become a great quarterback and a Hall of Fame quarterback until he learned to stay in the pocket and pass the ball when he needed to. And that's the difference here with Cam. And now he has made that transition, and I think he's going to be really pretty much unstoppable as one of the league's best QBs for the foreseeable future.
To me, he's almost the anti-Colin Kaepernick. And we know Kaepernick had a great arm and was able to move, but could never really modify his game, and the excuse there was, well, why should you change the way he is? Well, there's a reason for it. Kaepernick's been hurt. He hasn't had success. The league caught on to him. You can't be running all the time, and it's not a slight at running quarterbacks. It's the fact that this is the NFL, and you either get your head taken off or knocked out of a game.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing is what kind of lies simmers beneath the surface here, and we never talk about it here because we don't like to sensationalize, but the issue of race has to come into it a little bit when you talk about running quarterbacks. Now, when Cam is doing what he is, and they may say that this is a new breed of quarterback, but it's not. Granted, the size is one thing, but Roger Staubach, Terry Bradshaw, Steve Young, Aaron Rodgers, all these guys could run and throw, but now they say because it's Cam, it's supposedly some kind of thing we've never seen before. Now, what is the only element we really haven't seen before with Cam Newton? We've not seen a black quarterback do what Cam Newton is doing. That's the only difference. We've seen what he's done before. We just haven't seen it from someone of that shade, shall we say?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, and not only that, a guy who's just like an unbelievable physical specimen. Right. I mean, he's pretty much the size of a linebacker. He's a freak of nature, and let's face it, he's done it at a relatively young age compared to a lot of his peers, having to wait for years to get a shot at a Super Bowl. I mean, look at Peyton Manning. So, yeah, it's, you know what, I think it's also a function of, in America, we love to cheer people on the way up, and then when we get there, we love knocking them back down. I don't know if it's jealousy or just the American way, but that in a microcosm. And, with the whole celebration thing after every play, look,
Right.
I'm not a huge fan of it, but in case you haven't noticed, everyone's doing it. You've got guys getting sacks and they're getting their butts kicked, dancing around and getting hurt and cheering on normal tackles. I mean,
Right.
it's just the way it is now. And, I don't see him really showing anyone up or going overboard when he scores a touchdown. I think he's too busy giving the balls to the kids of Charlotte. But
Right.
yeah, I think it's yet again, and we've been through this before doing this show many years. You've got that bye week and you need storylines, and Peyton's not talking, so let's find one.
Yep, there you go. And, I don't know if I left out John Elway, great running quarterback, dude, Joe Montana, all those guys who have done that. But, so if they say this is the demise of the pocket passer, I don't really think it is. I mean, we've seen this before, and it's just good to see someone like Cam come in and then develop into a quarterback you could maybe compare to a John Elway or something, as opposed to saying, oh, well, he looks like he's going to be another Randall Cunningham or Michael Vick or something like that. And, again the underlying thing without saying anything.
Yeah, always in the subtleties, right?
There you go. So, let's talk about as far as Super Bowls. And we've all watched a lot of Super Bowls. They talk about the great plays, the great quarterbacks and things, and the not so great quarterbacks. And everyone, when you say, like, best quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl, worst quarterbacks, when they talk about worst quarterbacks, of course, Trent Dilfer gets brought up, and Mark Rippon gets brought up, and Brad Johnson, who are these kind of one-hit wonders and things. But what about a guy who has fallen into the black hole, I would say, and this is kind of ironic, but Jim Plunkett. Jim Plunkett won 2 Super Bowls with the Raiders, and it's almost like when you look at those Raider teams, they say, Ken Stabler won a Super Bowl with the Raiders, and then the Raiders won 2 more. So where does Jim Plunkett fall in this whole thing of quarterbacks who have, it was a great postseasons that he had, 2 of them, but why is Plunkett not even talked about as though he never existed?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think part of it might be because he won 2. So, we like to pick on the one-hit wonders of the world, and definitely agree with you on Dilfer and Rippon, but maybe because of that, or I don't know, maybe the fact that he was just kind of a quiet, unassuming guy, and let's leave him alone. But that's a good call on your part. I mean, the Eagles were a really good team heading into that first Super Bowl when the Raiders beat them, and there was Rod Martin and his 3 interceptions, so it's not like Plunkett really did a heck of a lot other than throw a nice screen pass to Kenny King. And then when you think back to the Tampa Super Bowl when they beat the mighty Redskins, everyone just talks about the remarkable run of Marcus Allen and Jack Squirek, the anonymous man picking off Theismann. So yeah, it's like he was there, but he wasn't. But personally, I think it's because he won 2. They're like, all right, he won his 2 Super Bowls. He was decent. But it's funny how history looks at itself. When we were kids, you think, well, Bradshaw was unbelievable. He was the greatest quarterback. He won 4 Super Bowls. And now people go back and say, well, he was good, but he had a great team around him, and he had Lynn Swann and John Stallworth. And it's funny how people go back, and even with Aikman and the Cowboys, it goes back to my earlier point. People love to pick on the winners.
Well, I think, and a point that I heard made on a show before was, it's interesting that we talk about someone having a meteoric rise when actually meteors fall. So maybe it's all right in there in that statement when they talk about a meteoric rise. It's because, hey, is it a rise, a fall, or is it all about perception?
That's a great oxymoron right up there with smartphone.
And jumbo shrimp. Okay. All right. So, and looking at, let's talk about a little bit modern day quarterbacks. Eli Manning, 2 Super Bowl rings. So, your boy Eli, to me, I think Eli needs one more good playoff run to solidify his place in history and maybe and get a sniff at the Hall of Fame. I think if he were to quit right now, he'd be called borderline maybe, but I think he really needs one more good run. Yeah,
I think so. And the ironic thing is, well, as of right now, as we record this show, he's got more Super Bowl rings than his big brother, who's going to get in with no problem. Isn't that ironic? But yeah, That's the thing with him. He's had those great runs they haven't gotten back, and the rest of his seasons, while he's had some nice ones, are nothing really to knock your socks off. I mean, especially in this era of passing and the relaxed rules and so forth that favor the pass. You'd think he'd have more great seasons under his belt. I mean, Matthew Stafford had a 5,000-yard season one year. I don't know. I don't think he's Hall of Fame material, but yeah, it remains to be seen. But regardless, Phil Simms won a Super Bowl with the Giants, almost led him to a second one before he got hurt, and there'll never be any talk of him going to the Hall of Fame. So at the very least, the guy got 2 rings in New York, and he delivered on a draft day trade with the Chargers. I think the Giants and their fans should be pretty happy with him.
Well, Giants fans are happy with Hostetler too, so, it's all about the ring. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, you win a title. That's it. You're all right. You're Teflon forever. Because I remember that season following Super Bowl 25 and the big quarterback controversy that Ray Handley inherited, and there were a lot of people on Hostetler's side. How quickly they forgot about Simms.
Yeah, that's true. And before we go, we got to talk about that. That NFC championship game. We gave props to Carolina, rightfully so. But what in the world happened to their adversary, the Arizona Cardinals? 7 turnovers. Carson Palmer with a horrible, horrible day. 4 interceptions and 2 lost fumbles. So he was personally responsible for 6 turnovers. He's kind of got to be sick about that. So do you think they just, and they were talking about maybe did they get the case of the jitters or something, but holy cow, they just got steamrolled.
In one respect, I wasn't surprised because we had hit on this. He kind of had a poor game against the Packers. I mean, the pass to Fitzgerald, he made a great job getting out of the pocket and finding him, but let's face it, Fitzgerald made that play. But, who knows if his finger was right? Who knows whether the game plan was really tinkered with, because it didn't look like the Cardinals we saw in November and December that were steamrolling teams like the Eagles and playing beating the Seahawks up in their building. So I'm not sure what the heck happened. I think with the Panthers, once they get a lead, and they're just off to the races. Patrick Peterson gets an interception. Ted Ginn made a terrific play, by the way. You want to talk about hustling. If you have kids or your young people, playing football, show them that play. That epitomizes hustle. And Palmer gets the ball and just, injury or not, made a stupid decision, one of many. Forced the ball and gives it right back to Carolina. I'm not quite sure, but, I saw a stat before that game that Larry Fitzgerald has had something ridiculous like 24 drop passes in his career, and he seemed to have at least 3 in that game. So, not sure what happened there, but that was, I don't know, that Cardinals team that we saw went missing.
Yeah, it's true. And the one thing that we had kind of talked about is would the Carolina Panthers kind of like when they got the 31-0 lead on Seattle, and then they give up 24 straight points, and the game comes down to the final plays. But this time they got the lead, and mercy, did they keep their foot on the gas. And it's one of those things where you could say, and I know detractors always say things about teams winning, teams getting cocky, look at the dancing, the high fives and all that, and the balls to the crowd and everything. So I don't think they were running up the score. I think it was they're playing ball. They know what happened the week before, so they know what happens when you take your foot off the gas. So they did what they had to do to solidify their trip to the big game here.
Yeah, I mean, they left their mark, and there were no doubts whatsoever. And don't think that Ron Rivera and company didn't have that in the back of their mind last Sunday.
Right. Okay, there we go, folks. So I'll tell you what, thank you for watching this week. And remember, follow me on Twitter at @TheInsideSports. Follow Mr. Lardieri on Twitter at Chris L Sports. We have one more show to do before the big game, and we will give you our predictions for who we think is going to take home that big shiny trophy. But before we go, Mr. Lardieri, any final thoughts for all the adoring public out there?
Why, thank you. But before I get to my thought, we're not going to do a prediction on the Pro Bowl. I'm very disappointed.
Well, you know what? The
Team
Pro
Urban,
Bowl,
Team Rice?
The Pro Bowl, any game in which Pac-Man Jones is considered an elite enough player to play with the best of the best, I don't think it's legit. So, no, we're going to just overlook the Pro Bowl.
All right, you've got a very valid point there. Hopefully Pac-Man will keep posting on social media while he's at it. But anyway, talked a lot about the Super Bowl. One storyline separate of that I found interesting. Not all the coaches have been hired. The Chargers are still trying to figure out whether they're going to pair up with the Rams in Inglewood inevitably or stay in San Diego. Saw a story today where they allegedly bought a plot of land in Santa Ana to use as a training facility, but they may stick it out in San Diego one more year. I don't know what it means. It's confusing. I don't know what the heck's going on in San Diego, but this is one story to keep your eye on. At some point, they're going to have to notify the Qualcomm down in San Diego or the LA Coliseum where they're going to be playing next year. So I figure right after the Super Bowl, before we get into all the combine and draft type, that'll be the next storyline to develop in the NFL. You and I have gone on record. We think the Chargers should stay in San Diego, but money talks.
Yep, absolutely. And then so remember too, next week, we'll talk about who we think is going to make it to the Hall of Fame too. We'll give that as a little bit of a side note there for everybody next week. So thank you for watching. We'll see everybody next week.